Hey everybody out there, this is Mike, and this is my review of Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Episode 2. Let's warn you, again, if just like with my previous review, if you haven't played Bioshock 1, Bioshock Infinite, or Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Episode 1, stop now, play those, and come back. I'm also going to be spoiling the ending later, talking about the ending later on in the video, so I will let you guys in on the warning before that happens. Alright, I must say, this game is much more stealth. It seems like the more the series goes on, the more stealthy it tries to be. I will say this is probably the easiest stealth game I've ever played. And although I enjoy that personally, because stealth is a bit too hard for me, stealth fans might be disappointed in the game mechanics and about how easy it really is. It was the easiest stealth game ever. I mean, The Last of Us I felt was more fun, but it had a bit more of a challenge to it. The stealth mechanics, it felt like it was just sort of there to give you some control. Because really, this is about the Bioshock lore. It's about the story and wondering, exploring things, and finding out the connections between Columbia and Rapture, which is really what this one is about. This wraps up the trilogy, and I view it as a trilogy. I view Bioshock as the first movie, like it's the first movie, even though it's the first game. But I call it I mention movie because if this were a movie franchise, I feel like Bioshock 1 would be the first in it, and it would be the most successful. And then like a few years later, they would make the two sequels, not counting Bioshock 2, because that feels like a more straight-to-video release. Bioshock Infinite and Bioshock Burial at Sea. There you go. And but that Bioshock Infinite and Burial at Sea would be two movies that were made at the same time and released a year apart, kind of like the Matrix trilogy, or the Back to the Future trilogy. But that's how I would look at it if it were a film franchise. But this is a game franchise. So back to that. I have to say that story-wise, this one, where the previous installments were mind-blowing in parts, where you had major plot twists in both of them. This one felt more like fan service. A lot of fan service. It basically felt like a send-off to the franchise, according to Ken Levine. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be more Bioshock games from other developers, but as far as Ken Levine is concerned, this feels like the finale to the Bioshock saga, and how it wraps it all together. And I'm not sure if it needed to. I don't. Part of the fun of Infinite was how ambiguous it was. It was like an art house film. This feels more like fan service. Now, some people are going to complain about this. I know that. And honestly, I can't highly praise it. But at the same time, as a fan of the lore, I did enjoy it. So I can't. I enjoyed it, but I don't think it's a mind-blowing masterpiece like Ken Levine's previous installments were in terms of Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite. Now, as far as Burial at Sea Episode 1 was concerned, in comparison to that, this game is longer. Paced, and the story is paced out better. I kind of felt like Episode 1 was more of a prologue, and this was the real story. This is really Elizabeth's story here. And yeah, it's if you're a diehard fan of the series, I do recommend it. But it is, in my opinion, Burial at Sea. When you put the two episodes together, I would say that Burial at Sea is probably, if you look at Bioshock 1, Bioshock Infinite, and Bioshock Burial at Sea as a trilogy, Burial at Sea would probably be the weakest chapter, because it's fan service rather than more incredible revelations. It's just more, it's just connecting the two stories. And yeah. It's not great, but it is good, and I did enjoy it, and I'm a Bioshock fan, so if you're a Bioshock fan, you will enjoy yourself. You have some time to kill. I got it through in a day, so and that was nice. It was nice to get something done in a day, but it didn't feel too short. The story felt fine, like pace-wise. And now I'm going to, I'm now going to talk about the ending for a bit. So I am going to say here, Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Episode 2 gets a thumbs up. Alright, now I'm going to talk about the ending. So leave if you haven't played it yet. The ending is total fan service. It reminded me of the ending to Revenge of the Sith, in the sense that when it was done, I really wanted to go back and play the first, because it literally takes you where the first one begins. And basically, Elizabeth is the cause of Bioshock 1, and the whole... So, Elizabeth is the cause of the original game. This Infinite and Burial at Sea are prequels. But they're prequels that you have to play after you play the first game, because they will spoil the first game. So yeah, it's fan service, which I enjoyed as a fan, and since Irrational is gone now, you know, it was kind of a somber farewell and a nice farewell. But I didn't get the same wow factor that I got from Infinite in the first game. But you know what? That's not that much. I'm not really going to complain about that very much, because I still enjoyed it. Sometimes fan service can be a good thing. I mean, I enjoyed Star Trek Into Darkness. That had a lot of fan service in it, and fan references and all that sort of thing. You know, if you love something enough, you are going to enjoy fan service. But yeah, it's a good game, but it's not a great game. But again, it's DLC, really, so it's not like a full-fledged game. But I just felt like Burial at Sea was the third part of the trilogy. If you think of Bioshock as a film franchise, the first movie is the masterpiece that everybody loves, and that became a huge hit. And a few years later, just straight to video comes Bioshock 2, a wannabe movie that is basically like the straight to video Disney sequels. Then you have Bioshock Infinite, which is the second proper theatrical Bioshock movie, and then Burial at Sea would be the third in the trilogy, and Infinite and Burial at Sea would be released a year apart. You know, just like Back to the Future and The Matrix. Where the first one is the best. A few years later, they make two sequels back to back, release them a year apart, and the sequels are they're enjoyable, but people are going to appreciate the first one the most. They're going to like the first film the best, and that's in time has proven, I think, that the original game is considered much better than Infinite to a lot of people. Although I think Infinite does measure up to the original game. This DLC is the weak part of a great trilogy, just like The Dark Knight Rises was the weakest link in the fantastic Dark Knight trilogy. But still, as a fan, you will enjoy it. You won't be blown away, but you will enjoy it. You'll be like, hey, there's Jack and all that. You know, again, that's why I'm saying I'm going ahead and spoiling it at this point, because if you haven't played it, you shouldn't be watching this part. Anyways, that's all I got to say. I'm just repeating myself over and over again, because I don't want the video to be too short for some reason, even though it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, very easy game, and Bioshock, one of the things I love about Bioshock is how easy the series has been. I didn't die once at all during my playthrough. People might not like that, but I enjoyed that. So yeah, definitely a thumbs up for this game. Not a thumbs way up, but a thumbs up. Where Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite get an A, Burial at Sea Episode 1 would probably get a C+, because it is, you know, the story is, I don't know, it just feels more like a prologue than the actual game. But Episode 2 gets a B+. So it's better than Episode 1, but it doesn't quite hold up to Infinite and the original game. But it is fun fan service for Bioshock fans. Anyways, that's all I got to say, so take care, everybody.